So Manasa, start the program.
Yep.
Okay, shall we start, Maharaj?
Yes, start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, Rahara. Today we are into the second day of our national webinar organized by our college, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, Rahara, and it is sponsored by Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. The webinar is on the philosophy of education and Swami Vivekananda. We are into the second day. And today we would begin with our flute recital, and that will be done by Sri Shagnik Mondal, second semester student, Department of Microbiology. So let's listen to the flute recital as the beginning of the second day. Wonderful. So that is how we begin our second day of national webinar, The Philosophy of Education and Swami Vivekananda. Now, I would request our Honorable Principal Maharaj, revered Principal Swami Kamalasananda, to give a welcome address for the day.
So, our most respected Professor Vishnu Padananda, Professor, Department of Education, Jadavpur University, most respected Professor Saradendu Mukherjee, now is the member of Indian Council of Historical Research, New Delhi, and also Professor Kumar Ratnam, Member Secretary, Indian Council of Historical Research. Now he is not present. He told that he is in meeting. He will join afterwards. And all the dignitaries present in the online platforms, guardians, and my dear students. So it is the very this today's webinar. It is the last day. All you have heard. It is the last day, and these 2 days webinar sponsored by Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. And we are very fortunate that this last day, the second day, we have got 3 eminent personalities, Professor Vishnu Padananda, Professor Saradendu Mukherjee, and Professor Kumar Ratnamji. So on the very outset, I expressed my heartiest regard, welcome to all of the 3 eminent persons on behalf of the college, on behalf of all the student, faculty, and staff member for their kind presence in this second final day of this webinar. And this topic is very known to you, especially the student, that is the philosophy of education and Swami Vivekananda. And yesterday, the 3 eminent speakers also, they dealt upon this topic, and in their dealings, that is man-making education, character building education, and the nervous associations of ideas. All these actually have come up this the talk of the yesterday's talk. And today also these 3 persons, they also dealt this topic, this philosophy of education and Swami Vivekananda. And we actually are waiting for their thoughtful deliberation. And especially I tell the student, after the final, after the all finishing of the all talk, 3 talks, 3 lecture, you ask question, and after, and you can also satisfy your queries after asking them question. And with this few words, I once again welcome the 3 distinguished speaker on behalf of the college, and also thanks all the participants in this webinar. Thanks all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much for welcoming each and everyone, dignitaries today. Now it's time that we move on to our invited talk. First, we will listen to Professor Vishnu Padananda, Professor, Department of Education, Jadavpur University. Before we move on to listen to him, let me just give a small introduction about Professor Vishnu Padananda. Professor Vishnu Padananda is a professor and former head Department of Education, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. At Kolkata, sorry. Former assistant professor, Department of Education, and founder, joint director, and course coordinator, Center for Counseling and Disability Study, Ravindra Bharati University, Kolkata. Former visiting professor, Department of Special Education, Institute of Education and Research, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. Former visiting professor, Department of Education, Tripura Central University, Tripura. Former project and course coordinator, Teachers Training College, Monovikas Kendra, Kolkata. Former district IED coordinator, DPEP and SSA, Murshidabad District, West Bengal. Member of the BOS of Education Department, Bardhaman University, Education Department, Jhargram University, Education Department, Jadavpur University, Education Department, Tripura Central University, Department of Teachers Training, Pashkura Bonomali College, Education Department, PG Bidhannagar Government College, Department of Education, PG Vivekananda College, Madhumgram, Department of Education, Habra Sri Chaitanya College, Department of Education, PG Birati Mrinalini Datta College. These are the few, and there are lots of things to say about Professor Vishnupadananda. So let us now listen to him. Over to Professor Vishnupadananda.
Am I audible, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasya rupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya namaha Vivekajananda nimagna chittang Vivekadanaika vinodashilam Vivekabhasha kamaniya kantim Vivekinam tang pranamam namami. My pranam to Thakur Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev, Mother Sarada Devi, Swami Maharaj, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Kamalasthana Ji, Principal Rahora Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, all the faculty members of the college, Professor Saradindu Mukherjee and all the other eminent speakers of the day, as well as the students, learners and scholars.
Vishnu Babu, your video is off. Is it possible to on?
My video is off. Is it on
off.
now?
If you not yet, just
Not yet, sir. It will take time.
Is it
yes,
on
yes,
now?
yes, yes. Yes. Now
Okay.
visible, sir. Now we are visible, sir. Yes, visible, sir.
Okay, thank you. So it is a foolish idea for me to say a few words in favor of Swami Vivekananda, such an eminent speaker, eminent scholar, revered personality, not only in Bengal, not only in India, but throughout the world, not only in the past, not only in the present, not only in the future. At least another 500 years, we have to wait to hear his voice regularly. And when I read a few words, I took a few hours to a few days to internalize the thinking, the voice of Swami Vivekananda. So as per the order of Swami Kamalasthana Ji, I'll talk a few words only regarding the philosophy of education of Swami Vivekananda. I'll start with his quotation. Man, according to the Vedanta philosophy, is the greatest being that is in the universe, angels or gods. whatever you may call them, have all to become men if they want to become perfect. According to Swamiji, man cannot be comprehended except in the context of his relationship to God. Quote unquote, the man form is higher than even the angel form, and of all forms, it is highest. Man is the highest being in creation because he attains to freedom. Swamiji always talked about man alone. Although divinity extends to the entire sentient creation, he believed that man is potentially divine. Metaphysically, he is equated with the divine. According to Swamiji, Sister Nivedita reports that in his book, The Master as I Saw Him, in page number 208, quote unquote, the difference between the gods and me must be a difference only of degree. So, according to Swamiji, everyone to strive to manifest his potential divine, and it is the duty of everyone to assist the manifestation of that divinity in others. Swamiji established his ideas on the basis of Advaita Vedanta. He also established the concept of education on the basis of Advaita Vedanta. He said, quote unquote, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man, and religion as the manifestation of the divinity already in man. Here, manifestation implies that something already exists and is waiting to be expressed. So, according to Swamiji, the main focus is learning, is to make the hidden ability of a learner manifest. He said, quote unquote, what a man learns is really what he discovers by taking the cover of his own soul, which is a mine of infinite knowledge. Mine of infinite knowledge. Every individual, every mind is nothing but a mine of infinite knowledge. The word perfection in the definition is also very significant. Every activity is connected with learning and training, etc. Is part of a process directed towards an end. So perfection means attaining a goal to an end, or in other words, the goal of actualizing the highest human potential. The other words, already in man, means human beings' potential, means abilities and talents. These abilities and talents remain within the human beings in latent or dormant form. Through education, we have to express that latent abilities or dormant abilities which are already within each and every individual. Swamiji's definition of education as divinity being the perfection itself, the goodness itself, education and religion are equated with each other, or at least are regarded as two different processes of the manifestation of the same absolute perfection, or to use his own beautiful imagery of evolving God and of the material man, quote unquote. This is taken from The Philosophy of Man-Making, written by Shantilal Mukherjee, page number 170. Swamiji, in his paper on Hinduism, read at the Parliament of Religions in America, said, the Vedas teach that the soul is divine, only held in the bondage of matter. Perfection will be reached when this bond will burst, and the word for it is therefore mukti. Mukti means freedom, freedom from the bonds of imperfection. He further analyzed that the whole object of religion is, quote unquote, to become perfect, to become divine, becoming perfect even as the Father in heaven is perfect. Here, Father means thy soul, the God, the Bhagavan, what it may be. And again, quote and unquote, then alone all errors cease when I am one with knowledge itself. Therefore, there is a clear identification of divinity with perfection, but of religion with education as well. Swamiji clearly feels that this is a super concept of education and not at once comprehensible by the multitude. He comes forward with another definition of education, which he used in a large number of his statements. The definition runs thus, quote unquote, the training by which the current and expression of will are brought under control and become fruitful is called education. Again, the training by which the current and expression of will are brought under control and become fruitful is called education. This definition covers the following points. 3 points. Number 1, the latent will of the individual is to be absent and its flow rendered possible. Therefore, education be man-making. মানুষ তৈরি করতে হবে মানুষ, আর বাকি সবকিছু আপনা থেকে হইয়া যায়। সেই মানুষের কথা বলেছেন education be man-making. Number 2, the current and expression of will is to be controlled for the benefit of the society, not only for the benefit of the individual, but at the same time for the benefit of the society. And number 3, as the individual life is in the life of the whole, therefore controlling the training of education in such a way that it does not turn away from society in any way. According to Swamiji, individual's happiness is in the happiness of the whole. Here again is the concept of Vedanta. In this definition, we get the royal road of the development of the individual and society. This definition synthesizes the external and internal nature. Control in the definition is control of more individual than society. Means the individual will be enabled to control himself. It is the main spirit of Swamiji's teaching. Therefore, the teacher does not do anything except helping the students to express the inherent knowledge which is already present within them. Here, the teacher may be just a gardener to support the tender plant, to stand and protect the baby plant from nature's evil. So education is for individual as well as for society. Education will equip the mass to struggle for life, build the character, and prepare the individual to support the society. If the education is not man-making, character-making, and life-building, it is not education at all, or it is entirely a negative education. Swamiji wrote, quote unquote, education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain and remains riot there, undigested, all your life. We must have life building, man-making, character-making, assimilation of ideas. If you have assimilated 5 ideas and made them your life and character, you have more education than any man who has got by heart a whole life. If education is identical with information, the libraries are the greatest sages in the world and encyclopedias are the rich. Very important quotation it is. He again stated that the present system of education is all wrong. The mind is cramped with facts before it knows how to think. Swamiji believed and stated in favor of spiritual and secular education according to the national line. According to him, both education and training should be man-making. And this is the ideal of all education. He believed that if man-making is done, all other works will be done. An educated man means he will be knowledgeable, with good character, secular, and love the nation from the heart. He stated, quote unquote, always cultivate the heart. Always cultivate the heart. He stated, Swamiji stated that the teacher be sinless and perfectly pure. He must possess purity in heart and soul, because without purity in heart and soul, in speech and vision, a teacher cannot support a learner for manifestation of his latent qualities which are already within each and every individual. Why the teacher must be pure? The questions arise. Swamiji answered that each of us has to teach himself. The external teacher can support, can provide suggestion to the internal teacher. The pure external teachers only can stimulate internal teachers of the taught for their purity. The only true teacher, quote unquote, the only true teacher is he who can immediately come down to the level of the student and transfer his soul to the student's soul and see through the student's eyes and hear through his ears and understand through his mind. Such a teacher can really teach and none else. All these negative, breaking down, destructive teachers that are in the world can never do anything good. Therefore, Swamiji dreamt about those to be teachers having good character and pure. A person with mere academic degree and some information, but without true knowledge, without good character, without pure mind, cannot be a teacher in true sense. Such teachers can really teach nothing and unable for man making, character building, and life building. They are unable to manifest the latent qualities and capacities of its taught. They only can break down and destroy the taught in their mind and soul. Quote unquote. The true teacher can throw his whole force into the tendency of the taught.
Your voice is not coming.
Yes.
Hello? Your voice is not coming. Your voice is not coming.
আমরা শুনতে শুনতে পাচ্ছি মহারাজ।
ভয়েসটা কি শোনা যাচ্ছে? Hello?
Now it's coming. Yes.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes, coming.
হ্যাঁ আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
Okay. The true teacher can throw his whole force into the tendency of the taught. Without real sympathy, we can never teach well. If the teacher is not enlightened, how can he enlighten others? If he has no real sympathy in his mind, how can he teach his students? A teacher with tough character can only convey toughness among his students. He spoils the total act of teaching and the taught. So such teacher will not be able to awaken the taught and unable to develop a bonding between the teacher and the taught. In such cases, The disciple cannot keep a faith and respect in his guru, that is teacher nowadays. If he has nothing, what he will teach to others, what he will give to his students. So even if the students are prepared and open to receive, they can get only nothing. Swamiji developed his idea of education on the basis of Advaita Vedanta. His philosophy of education is known as man-making education. He played a vital role in developing the philosophical concept of education. Due to his short lifespan, he did not start any educational institution to practice his philosophy, though schools and colleges run by Sri Ramakrishna Mission practicing successfully his ideas of education. According to Subhas Chandra Bose, quote unquote, it is very difficult to explain the versatile genius of Swami Vivekananda made on students, on youth of our times by his works and speeches far outweighs that made by any other leader to the country. He, as it were, expressed fully their hopes and aspirations. Efficiency stated that, quote unquote, I think that Vivekananda's greatest service is the development in his teaching of the lofty ideals of humanism, which incorporate the finest features of Indian culture. Many years will pass, many generations will come and go. Vivekananda and his time will become the distant past. But never will there fade the memory of the man who all his life dreamed of a better future for his people, who did so much to awaken his compatriots and more India favored and more India forward. So this is in brief about the philosophy of education of Swami Vivekananda. I think uh, nobody can say the complete ideal, the complete philosophy of education of Swami Vivekananda. Nobody can understand the total philosophy of Swamiji in a single life. We have to return again and again only to understand the philosophy of Swamiji. Namaskar, pranam sabaike.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That was Professor Vishnupada Nando, Professor, Department of Education, Jadavpur University. And he has focused on the man and perfection. And that perfection can only be found in man when in relation to God, he said. He said about what Swamiji said, the man is potentially divine, and we must always have a manifestation of the God in us. He, with all his best effort, tried to explain the philosophy of education of Swami Vivekananda. He said about spiritual and secular education. Thank you, sir. Now we will we'll listen to Dr. Sharadendu Mukherjee, member ICHR, New Delhi. Let me just give a brief introduction about Dr. Sharadendu Mukherjee. Dr. Sharadendu Mukherjee has written on peasants' movement, freedom struggle, forced immigration, foreign relations, cultural nationalism, historiography, and various controversial issues. Currently, a member of the Indian Council of Historical Research, he has taught modern history at Hansraj College, New Delhi University, and for some time at the Delhi University PG level, North and South Campus. A postdoctoral research scholar at the Department of History, Birkbeck College, University of London, Charles Wallace Visiting Fellow at the Center for Indian Studies, Department of Politics, University of Hull. He has been a member of the Indian Council of Social Science Research and various academic bodies in Allahabad, Hyderabad, and Kolkata. So now it's time that we listen to Dr. Sharanendu Mukherjee.
Namaskar. Can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm thankful to the management and especially Swami Kamarasthangji for inviting me to learn something from your company. I'm sorry I missed yesterday's talks of the revered Swamiji, so I really don't know if what I'm going to speak today will be repetition of what they've said. But any case, I'm sorry that I missed what all those learned Swamijis have told you. So with this caveat, I begin. Now, since I think there's a large number of students, so I'll keep the students' need in mind. And also thank previous speaker, Professor Nanda, for his erudite talk. Since he has spoken on certain aspects, I would not like to repeat those things because things are common. The subject matter is same, but certain things are common. So I'll try to take up certain aspects of Swamiji's fascinating life and career, short span of life that he lived, 39 years, to highlight certain aspects. As you know that a person of Swami Vivekananda's stature, the lectures, innumerable lectures he delivered all over the world, the correspondence that he had with so many people, as you look through his correspondence, it's so interesting, so illuminating, and so informative. And then he spoke on education, specifically on large number of occasions in his lectures in India, in various parts of the world, in his letters to various personalities. So I have just picked up a few things to fill up at this time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. But before I begin, since I am a student and I don't know how many of you have studied history here, I'll give you a very, very brief introduction to the condition of India in late 19th century, when Swamiji was born and when he remained very active. Now, this is what we call the zenith of British Empire. Almost whole of India that we knew up to 1947 was controlled by the British, including Burma, including what is now Pakistan, Bangladesh, so a huge territory. And every indigenous challenge to the British Empire had been crushed. Punjab was annexed in 1849, Sindh before that in 1843, whole of southern India, whole of eastern India had been brought under the British control. The Marathas, who only stood up to them, had been finished by 1818. So it is totally British control. And certain things are taking place, certain positive and negative things. Look, I'm a nationalist like probably most of you, but yet I would not deny certain positive things which happened in India after they conquered India, no matter how much they looted, how much they exploited, and how they dealt with Indians. That's a different story altogether. But let's try to be a little positive about the situation prevailing in the 19th century. Now, all kinds of efforts being made by various sections of Indian people, either to take the society forward or to put the clock back. So India's social history, around which the political history, freedom movement will evolve, emerged out of these contradictory tendencies, certain people trying to take the society forward, who built up, who contributed to what we call the Bengal Renaissance. The fantastic achievements in every domain of human life, art, science, literature, philosophy, social science, social reform, and then, of course, new kind of politics. And so, and this is when Bonkim had already given his message. Anandamath had come, people were familiar with Vande Mataram, Michael had lived and died, and so many things were happening. Koviguru was also very active. By now, by the end of 19th century, he's also a 35, 40-year-old man. So India is witnessing, Bengal in particular, a lot of churning, lot of high-level intellectual creativity. The creativity which had not occurred in India for hundreds of years. So Swamiji belonged to that period. And that is also the time when a vigorous attempt was made to put the society back, to put the clock back. The Wahhabism Farizis, the severe challenge that the Indian society, Hindu society faced, they had just been crushed. The last Wahhabi trial was held in Calcutta, mind you, as late as 1871. And those of you who do research in history will see volumes and volumes of files on the Calcutta trial, Patna trial. So this is also a very dangerous time. Swamiji is already 10-year-old boy. Aligarh Sir Syed Ahmad had already come. He's been active. Pan-Islamists had found a base in Calcutta. So this is also one very important development of late 19th century India. And Swamiji belonged to that era of transition, when people, the societies had to make a decision which trend they will follow, in what direction they want to take the society and country forward. As you all know, Swamiji belonged to the tradition which wanted to modernize the society, yet it was rooted in the past, the best of India's tradition. Since this is very well known, especially in the circle of Ramakrishna Mission, the Vedantic tradition, the tradition of Sanatana Dharma, I'm not going to dilate anything on that. The subject for us is the education philosophy of Swamiji. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of the details, about which probably you know as much, not more than what I know, Swamiji's life and mission itself is an eloquent testimony to that fact. What human mind, what human genius can achieve. Swamiji's early life was not a bed of roses. He faced all kinds of problems, challenges, and he faced them boldly. We all know in what condition who took sannyas. He became paribrajak, traveled on foot all over India, and then very soon he sets up one of the most successful movements of social and cultural reform in India, the Ramakrishna Mission movement. And then, of course, you know, his travel, his visit to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, and all what he did. This is part of folklore. This is part of our heritage that we learn to cherish and wish that people like Swamijis were born again and again to show us a light and take us forward. Okay, now, so Swamiji's mission, his philosophy, education, can be gathered much from the way he lived and worked. Karma yogi till the end, and a very learned scholar who was not afraid to tell the truth. He was frank, He was very, very well read. And what is his age when he died, as you know? 39. No age to die. And yet he accomplished so much. So knowledge. So his pursuit of knowledge is something which is wonderful. And this is the time when there's no fast means of communication, no telephone to the extent that you know, or mobile or computer. Traveling was difficult. To get hold of a book was difficult, and doing everything on his own. And we know the poverty, the financial problems that he faced all his life. In 1900, he writes a letter to Srimati Sharola Ghoshal. All of you are familiar with that. She was editor of Bharati. This is 24th April 1897. But he's referring to his visit to Europe. He had seen a bit of Europe, and what strikes him most is the comfort level of working class people. Comfort level. And the education they had achieved. I'm deliberately choosing this example so that I don't have to repeat what you generally associate with sadhus and mahatmas. The sadhus and mahatmas will always talk of the glory of ancient India, the glory of Sanatan Dharma, how great we are. He was fully conscious. We'll come to that. But Swamiji had a practical approach to life, very practical. He could see the good, the bad, the negative and positive in civilizations, in cultures he experienced. So sitting in Europe, he's writing to Sarala Devi that how educated the working class people in Europe are and what high standard of living they have. He said, I shed tears when I think of the poor in India. I shed tears for them. They're so poor. They live in abysmal poverty, grinding poverty. But what can save them? What can save them? Education. A little confidence in themselves. Very interesting. See how he learns. He gives us the examples of Irish immigrants in New York. As you know, that more Irish people live outside Ireland than in Ireland itself. So out migration from Ireland has been very common. Last 300, 400 years they've been migrating. A lot of them migrated to America. As you know, perhaps John Kennedy was the president of USA, was from an Irish family who had migrated 400 years back. He says, when I look at the Irish immigrants in New York, we find them, my God, they come, they're so poor. They don't have proper clothes, they can't eat, they look so emaciated. But in 6 months' time, they become confident. There's a change in the sartorial style, they wear good clothes, and it seems they are very happy, they are doing well. So what makes the difference? What makes the difference? Education. So this is how Swamiji will tell in his unique way what role, what constructive role education plays. I have had the privilege of visiting this institution at Khordha at the invitation of Swami Kamalasanandaji, and also various Ramakrishna missions in various parts of the world, including my hometown in my childhood, and then various parts of the world, various parts of India, certainly. I've been to many of these schools. I've been listening to many of the Swamijis, and I know what profound knowledge they have. So this is the impact. This is the direct, immediate impact of Swamiji's ideas in education. He meant it. He ensured that Ramakrishna Mission, the education institutions run by it, they live up to his expectations and provide education that he wanted younger people to imbibe. So this is also one very important example of what Swamiji wanted. Now, to achieve this self-confidence, Swamiji used the term Brahman. Brahman not in the sense caste, Brahman. Brahman, the inner Atma, Jivatma. This must be aroused. And that is only when a society can grow up. Now, next, Swamiji comes to the nature of quality of education that was provided in India. He says, I read it out. Education that our boys receive is very negative. The schoolboy learns nothing, but has everything of his own broken down. Want of Shraddha, lack of Shraddha is a result. No respect. And that's why this is happening. So he says once, therefore we are near destruction. The remedy is now, again he says, to provide education. And to achieve that, we need self-knowledge, which he says doesn't mean long hairs, which have the impression of sadhu is kamandalu. Not this thing, stuff, stick to walk, matted hair, no, but knowledge pure and simple. And only when people have this knowledge, he quotes Katha Upanishad, arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is reached. So this is how Swamiji will spread his message of the real content of education. So always he highlights the importance of Jivatma, that's what he calls the individual soul. And there, the spiritual training plays a very, very important role. Next, now, sorry, because we are, many of us have spent all our life earning bread, teaching, dealing with the students. So when I read at some of his passages, it seems that probably Swamiji may be referring to the education system prevailing in India even in 2021. Maybe he's writing in 1897, 1900 or earlier. This is lack of originality, the timidity, and the fear which is deep-seated in our mind. We are not trained to tell the truth, especially in social sciences, historical studies. My friends who teach science, material science, physics, they said also brainwashing goes on there. So it's not confined to history or social studies. Swamiji was very, say, sad at the fact that education which is provided has some good points. Fine, he accepts. But it has a tremendous disadvantage. And that disadvantage is so great that it's weighed down. Why not? Because it's not man-making education. It is merely negative education. Negative education. Negative education is what is based on negation. That is, you deny certain facts in history. You blow up, you make up stories and tell them. And you tell them from class 4 and 5, no, you should not be. This may be true, but you're not supposed to tell these things. And this habit sinks deep in our psyche, deep in our mindset. With the result, our society cannot produce very creative minds. Now he says, education is not filling the mind with a lot of facts. Just filling facts is not. But perfecting the instrument and getting complete mastery of our own mind, control over our own mind is a key to education. Then he says, which is again fact, he says the child is taken to school And the first thing he learns is that his father is a fool. The second thing, that his grandfather is a lunatic. The third thing, that all his teachers are hypocrites. The fourth, that all the sacred books are lies. By the time he's 16, he's mass of negation, lifeless and boneless. I differ a little from here. And this is a point which I make, whether people like it or not. Fine. But despite this, the British colonial system, some of the best minds that India produced, Bengal produced, were products of this time. Say Raja Rammohn Roy is before that. He learned English, but he was not part of the English education system. He learned Persian, Arabic, Sanskrit, Pali, Bengali, and he was an outstanding scholar, outstanding social reformer. So after that, say Rabindranath Tagore, or Michael, or Bonkim, and you name Swamiji, you name thinkers, politicians, Surendra Banerjee, Ramachandra Datta, Subhash Bose, revolutionaries in India, in Bengal, outside Bengal, the biggest minds, Tilak, Rana De, Rajgopalachari, all kinds of people, they're all products, Aurobindo, products of British education system. And let's admit, we have not produced anything of the stature after 1947. The last Nobel laureate sitting in India, what is Nobel laureate in science, is C.V. Raman, long before independence, mind you. Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, Prafulla Chandra Ray, the big names in science, they're all active before 1947, not 1947. If today Indian scientists, technocrats are doing well, they're not doing so well in India. Maybe some of them are coming back. So here I differ that why this happened after 1947. But this is not the story I'm concerned with right now, so I would not expand this thing anymore. Sri Aurobindo said one thing, and this is very relevant in this context. He said, our problem, India's problem is not poverty, subjection, we are slaves, like that. Our problem is that we have stopped thinking. Biggest problem is thought deficit. Indians have stopped thinking. So we have stopped thinking as a nation after 1947. Very unfortunate. So when Swamiji is talking of a school boy, student going to school and being told that the first thing is learn, his father is a fool, his grandfather is a lunatic, his sacred books are lies, it sometimes seems that he's referring to the textbook which are taught in India even in 2021. So sometimes societies change for the better, sometimes societies refuse to change for the better. Yet what people like Swamiji or Sri Aurobindo said remain very important. I'll just finish, I think my time should be over, just 5 minutes more. So because of the crippling effects of the education that students got, and referring to end of 19th century, more than 125 years to 20 years back. By the time he's 16, he's a mass of negation, lifeless negation, lifeless and boneless. So he says, 50 years of such education has not produced one original man in 3 presidencies. But a little differ, like I said, is we did produce certain outstanding people in late 19th century, early 20th century, but not after that. Fine. Swamiji repeats time and again that education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain and runs right there, undigested all your life. So we must have life building, man making, character making, assimilation ideas. Now, how would our students, young minds, learn to tell the truth if they are told from age 6 or age 8 that, okay, you learn this from your books. If he has access to information which contradicts that, your teacher will say, parents say, that may be true, you're right, তুমি সত্যি কথা বলছো, but এখন এসব বলো না, নম্বর কম পাবে. So this habit gets into our academic cycle, and all our attempt at character building goes not. Swamiji could see that, and so he says again, I will end in 2 minutes time. If education is identical with information, the libraries are the greatest sages in the world, and encyclopedias are the greatest rishis. He says not. Mere facts is not. And so how to achieve that? The ideal way to get real education, whole education, is to get spiritual and secular training also. This must be in own hands. National lines, national methods, but certainly not too much of nationalism, because like the famous letter of that Raja Raman Rai wrote to Lord Amherst in 1823, he says, we need English language. We need modern science and technology to take the society forward. So Swamiji is actually trying to have the finest combination of the best of both worlds. The inheritance that you have got from our forefathers, our rishis, and what the modern society can offer. But the key is character building, the capacity to think honestly and independently. Just last line. When we look at some of the iconic figures he was corresponding with, he are directly influenced, we see, why the revolution movement was so strong in Bengal. It had originated in Maharashtra, Chapekar brothers, isn't it? Like that. Tilak tradition. But Bengal, it spread very fast in 20th century. And here Swamiji plays a very important role. He didn't want Ramakrishna Mission to get involved in the Ramakrishna, in the political movement, national movement. He told Sister Nivedita also that we must keep our movement from the national movement. But when Swami Vivekananda will tour the villages in Bengal, what he said, Bonkimpo. And this is how Sitaram Goelji, as the greatest intellectual I have seen in the last 50 years, he will say that this is Swamiji's message. Why revolutionary movement picked up in Bengal? Fastest, most extensive was this message of Swamiji, Bonkimpo. So this is how, and then he influenced directly Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, how he influenced Jamshedji Tata, to that Irish lady, Margaret Noble, who became Sister Nivedita. So it's a long, long, fascinating story. And so he wants that questioning spirit, which Nachiketa had asked Yama, Lord Yama. So that kind of approach had to be pursued. And then only we can attain certain things, certain percentage, fraction of what Swamiji wanted. We are grateful that our country produced people like Swami Vivekananda. We are grateful that the great institution like Ramakrishna Missions is dedicated. Swamiji's faculty members are taking the story farther and farther and trying to bring about radical changes in the quality of life and the mindset of your people. I once again thank you. আপনাদের সবাইকে নমস্কার ও অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That was, we were listening to Dr. Sharananda Mukherjee, member ICHR, New Delhi. We are supposed to have a talk by Professor Kumar Ratnam, Delhi Member Secretary, ICHR, New Delhi, but he has not yet joined us. So we'll take this
Minute.
time for the question answer session. Let me just summarize or just say a few things that what Dr. Farinandu Mukherjee has focused in between. He started with the history of India when the British Empire was its zenith. He focused on or highlighted on Puribrajak Swamiji, Ramakrishna Mission movement, and the visit to Chicago. He focused on the rousing of the Brahman that Swamiji taught and of quality education. He mentioned of the importance of the Atman, control of our mind, and character building as the key to education. He also focused on the combination of whatever we inherit and what the modern society offers. And then he ended with a bit of influences of Swamiji. So the platform is open now for question. Anybody can ask questions, and please mention the speaker from whom you want to know the answer.
Yes. Is Swamiji in contact with Kumar Ratnams? Have you called him up, Swamiji?
Yes, sir. I have called him. He told that just with shortly I am trying to join. He told shortly.
That's very nice.
Shortly I am
Very
trying.
nice. Very nice.
So we
I
are
will call
continuing
him.
this question session.
Yes, yes.
So
Please,
after
please.
that, in the meantime.
That's very nice. Good. Very good. Is Kumar is joining.
Yes, he told that just to give me sometimes I am joining. He told.
Oh, very good. That's wonderful.
Any questions?
No questions? Questions can be asked in Bengali also. আমি বাংলা বলতে পারি যদি
তোমরা বাংলাতে কোশ্চেন জিজ্ঞাসা করতে পারো, তোমার ভাবতে হয়তো ইংরেজিতে না বলে বাংলাতেও জিজ্ঞাসা করো, তারা জিজ্ঞাসা করবে। কেউ আছো এখানে জিজ্ঞাসা করো।
বাংলা বলতে চাই, বাংলা বলার সুযোগ পাই না দিল্লিতে আমরা। চিরকাল আমরা বাংলা বলতে পছন্দ করব, বলুন। তো আপনারাই কিছু বলুন, স্বামীজিরা আপনারা কিছু বলুন, আরো যেসব পয়েন্ট ছেড়ে গেছে আমাদের সময় যেন আরো 5-7 মিনিট আমার হাতে, বাট সময় দেখলাম সময় হয়ে গেছে, ভাবলাম উনি এসে গেছে।
না আসলে রঞ্জনবাবু আসার কথা, আমি তো ফোনই করলাম, তারপর উনি বলছে যে আমি জাস্ট হয়ে পড়েছি, জাস্ট আমি চেষ্টা করছি ঢোকার 5-10 মিনিটের মধ্যে। আমি ঠিক আছে, আমরা কন্টিনিউ করছি, আপনি মানে এ করুন, মানে কি বলে ঢোকার চেষ্টা করুন, বললাম ওনাকে, এই আর কি।
আপনারা কিছু বলে দিন, আরো আপনারা কিছু বলুন।
না আপনারা ঠিক পয়েন্ট তো করেছেন, এটা
আমি একটা কোয়েশ্চেন করি মহারাজ।
হ্যাঁ,
স্যারকে একটা কোয়েশ্চেন করি আমি।
প্লিজ বলো বলো।
স্যার, আমি আজকে সকালবেলাতে আই ওয়াজ স্টাডিং উইথ হিন্দ স্বরাজ বাই গান্ধীজি। তো হিন্দ স্বরাজের একটা এডুকেশন বলে একটা পার্ট আছে, সেখানে উনি বেসিক্যালি বলছেন যে এই ফরেন ওয়েস্টার্ন যে এডুকেশন বা ইংলিশ, এটা আমাদেরকে অনেক খারাপ পথে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে। সো অনেকটা বিবেকানন্দর যে ফিলসফিটা রয়েছে সেই ফিলসফিটাই উনিও অনেকটা বলছেন। উনি ফিনিক্স স্কুল শুরু করেছিলেন, সেটা চলেনি কিছুদিন পরে, তারপর আবার অন্যভাবেও শুরু করেছিলেন। তো আপনি যদি একটু হাইলাইট করেন এই গান্ধীজির এডুকেশন সিস্টেম এবং তার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে বিবেকানন্দর সঙ্গে যদি একটু একটা ইয়ে করে দেন, ব্রিজ করে দেন একটুখানি।
প্রথম কথা, গান্ধীজির হিন্দ স্বরাজ বইটা নিয়ে আমি কিছু বলতে চাই না, কারণ যেটা বলবো সেটা বোধহয় এখানে বলা ঠিক হবে না। হিন্দ স্বরাজ নিয়ে আমি বলবো না তার ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডটা কি, বা তার অন্য সেশন অন্য জায়গায় বলবো, আমি এখানে আনতে চাইনি ওই ব্যাপারগুলো। আর না, স্বামীজির দেখুন, স্বামীজি তো প্রোডাক্ট, তো উনি তো বিএ পাশ করেছেন ক্যালকাটা ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে, সেখানে তো উনি ব্রিটিশ সিস্টেমই পড়াশোনা করেছেন, যার ফলে ওনার ব্রিটিশ পলিটিক্যাল লাইফ, ব্রিটিশ ফিলসফার সবাই সঙ্গে ওনার ভালো পরিচিতি ছিল, জানতেন না খুবই। আর যত পড়বেন আপনারা পড়েছেন সবাই, আমাকে বেশি পড়েছেন স্বামীজিকে নিয়ে, সো ওয়েল রেড, সো ওয়েল ভার্সড। তো ইউরোপিয়ান সিস্টেমটা তো ওনার মানে নখদর্পণে ছিল। বলুন, উনি বলছিলেন যে আমাদের এডুকেশন সিস্টেম আমাদের আইডিয়া নিতেই হবে। উনি কূপমণ্ডুক ছিলেন না, উনি বলছেন না, বলছেন যে এই তো বলছেন যে we need, is to study independent of foreign control different branches of knowledge that is our own, and with it the English language and Western science. We need technical education and all else that may develop industries, so that men, instead of seeking for service, may earn enough to provide for themselves and save something against a rainy day. উনি বলছেন যে টেকনিক্যাল এডুকেশন দরকার, ইংরেজি শেখা দরকার, বাট সব সময় নিজের সত্তাটাকে বাঁচিয়ে রাখতে হবে, নিজের মনটাকে শক্ত করতে হবে। আর সেইখানেই আমাদের সনাতন ধর্মের আমাদের যে হেরিটেজ, সেইটা কাজ দিচ্ছে। সেইটাকে যেমন পণ্ডিত নেহরু সমাজ বলতে উনি এগুলো বুঝতেন না, উনি খুব পাত্তা দেননি। গান্ধী কিছু করেছেন, রামরাজ বলেছেন, কিছু বলেছেন, বাট নট ভেরি শিওর। শ্রী অরবিন্দ বলেছেন, তিলক বলেছেন, গলা খুলে বলেছেন, স্বামী দয়ানন্দ বলেছেন যে উই ক্যানট কাট আওয়ারসেলফ অফ ফ্রম দ্য রুটস। নেহরুজি, ডিসকভারি অফ ইন্ডিয়া, স্বামীজি খুব ভালো কথা বলেছেন, খুবই ভালো কথা, কিন্তু পণ্ডিত নেহরু এই ব্যাপারগুলো বুঝতেন না। যাই হোক, আমি সেটাও এখন আসতে চাই না। সেই জন্য স্বামীজির অ্যাপ্রোচটা খুব সাউন্ড ছিল। মানে দেখুন, এখন তো এত রকম আমাদের টেম্পটেশন, এত গ্যাজেটস এসে গেছে, কত রকম, মানে পড়াশোনা করা যেমন সাবজেক্ট দূর হচ্ছে, মানে অ্যাক্সেস অফ নলেজও ইজি হয়ে গেছে, তাই না? এই গুগল সার্চ, এই টেলিফোন, মোবাইল, কত কি কাণ্ড হয়েছে, তখন কিছুই ছিল না। বাট সেই সময় নিজের কাজ করে গেছেন। তো সাউন্ড একাডেমিক, আপনারা সবাই যারা পড়েছেন, সবাই পড়েছেন, আমিও সামান্য পড়েছি, মানে যত পড়ি তত অবাক হই। রবীন্দ্রনাথ কবিগুরু প্রাচুর্যের মধ্যে মানুষ হয়েছেন। মাইকেলের দুঃখ কষ্ট ছিল, ধর্মান্তরণ ছিল না, কোন প্রবলেম ছিল। স্বামীজি অনেক সমস্যা অনেক দেখেছেন, অনেক গেছেন প্র্যাকটিক্যালি। তার মধ্যে আমাদের শাস্ত্রের ব্যাপারটা, আমাদের কালচারের ব্যাপারটা এত ভালো করে শিখেছেন, আর শিখে সেটা প্রচার করার চেষ্টা করেছেন। তো ওনার খুব মানে প্র্যাকটিক্যাল অ্যাপ্রোচ ছিল। এমনি প্র্যাকটিক্যাল অ্যাপ্রোচ অনলি কন্টেম্পোরারি রিফর্মার পাই স্বামী দয়ানন্দ সরস্বতী, দয়ানন্দ অ্যাগ্লোভেদিক মুভমেন্ট। এমন কোনো বোধহয় দেশের জায়গা নেই যেখানে ডিএভি মুভমেন্ট নেই। সেটা কিন্তু ইন্সপায়ার্ড বাই একজন, তারপরে মুভমেন্টটা স্ট্রং ছিল। এরা সবাই কিন্তু রুটেড ইন ইন্ডিয়াস রিচ কালচারাল ট্রেডিশন, কাট অফ হননি। সেই জন্যই ওরা লোকের মনে একটা জায়গা করে নিয়েছেন। কারণ ডিপ ইনসাইড ভেতরে খুব একটা ক্ষতি, আমাদের ভেতরে ওই আমাদের একটা রেসপেক্ট ফর আওয়ার এল্ডার্স, রেসপেক্ট ফর আওয়ার হেরিটেজ থেকে যায়, কিন্তু সেইটাকে বড় করার, সেটাকে বাড়াবার সুযোগ দেওয়া হয়নি এই সোসাইটিতে আফটার 1947। সেই বাধাটা চলে গেলে আমাদের দেশে পোটেনশিয়াল, কেন আমাদের ছাত্ররা এত ভালো কোয়ালিটি, আমরা সবাই পড়িয়েছি, বহুকাল পড়িয়েছি, সবাই দেশে বিদেশে ঘুরেছে, পড়িয়েছে, দেখেছি, মানে ইন্ডিয়ান স্টুডেন্টের কোয়ালিটি এত হাই, কিন্তু এখানে ঠিক সেমনি করে সুযোগ সবাই পায় না, অনেকে পায়, অনেকেই ভালো করছে। আমাদের সেটা মনে রাখতো, আমাদের মানে কম্প্রিহেন্সিভ ট্রেনিংটা দরকার আমাদের, যেটা আপনারা করেন, ডিএভি স্কুলসে করে, যেগুলো অনেক সময় অন্য পাবলিক স্কুলে হয় না। সেইখানে স্বামীজির আইডিয়াস কোর্স ওভার আদার্স, আর এইটা আমাদের মনে রাখতে হবে। ঠিক আছে?
হ্যাঁ, নিশ্চয়ই স্যার।
বলুন।
কিন্তু স্যার, গভর্নমেন্ট কেন আরো ইনিশিয়েটিভটা নিচ্ছে না, যে আমরা এই যে এডুকেশনস গুলো, সনাতনী এডুকেশনের কথা বলছি, অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম আমরা টেকনিক্যাল এডুকেশনের কথা বলছি, স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্ট সবকিছু, তাহলে এইটাকে নিয়ে কেন স্বচ্ছতার সাথে এত ভালো একটা পলিসি এটা,
যেটা অনেকেই অনেকবার আলোচিত হয়েছে, তাহলে কেন আমরা এখনো অব্দি একটা ট্রেডিশনাল ওয়ে অফ, মানে সেই ভালো রেজাল্ট করতে হবে, সেইখানেই যেতে হবে, এই পরপর একটা পুঁথি পড়ার মতো বই পড়ে যাচ্ছে আর কি?
এটা আমাদের বলুন সমাজের মানে ইকোনমিক প্রবলেমটা বড় বেশি না একটা লেভেলে, সেই জন্য তারা থাকে ভালো জায়গায় পড়াশোনা করা, নম্বর বেশি পাওয়া, ভালো চাকরি করা। ইকোনমিক প্রবলেম মেইন প্রবলেম। তার মধ্যেও তো লোকে যারা করেই না, সে তো বেরোচ্ছেই সাধারণ, অতি সাধারণ বাড়ি থেকে, খুব সাধারণ মিডল ক্লাস বাড়ির ছেলেমেয়েরা ভালো করছে, আকছার ভালো করছে নয়। বাট ওইটা মানে এডুকেশনটা, মানে প্রপার এডুকেশনটা, এখন নতুন এডুকেশন পলিসি হয়েছে, জানি না ওটাতে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট হলেই, কথা তো সব বলে পলিসি ভালো বলে। আমার কাছে কমেন্টের জন্য আমাদের অফিসকে পাঠিয়েছিল, আমি কমেন্ট করে দিয়েছিলাম। আমি বলেছিলাম অনেকে ওপিনিয়ন চায়, প্রেস টেস এদিক ওদিক, আমরা দেখবো ইন্টেনশন খুব ভালো, ইন্টারডিসিপ্লিনারি হবে, মাদার টাং হবে, কিন্তু এটা করার লজিস্টিক্যাল ক্যাপাসিটি এনশিওর করতে হবে। দিল্লিতে বসে একটা বাঙালি ছেলে বাংলা পড়তে পারবে স্কুলে? একটা মালালি ছেলে পড়তে পারবে? একটা মালালি ছেলে বিহারে বসে মালালি পড়তে পারবে? এইসবগুলো মানে বলা সোজা। আর দেখুন, সংস্কৃতটা ভালো, খুবই সায়েন্টিফিক। অনেকে বলে খুব মানে উচ্চশিক্ষিত বিদেশে পড়াশোনা, বড় ডিগ্রি, তারাও বলে সংস্কৃতটা ভীষণ রিচ। তার শুরু করতে হবে একটা, না কোনো জায়গায় শুরু করতে হবে। তো আর সংস্কৃত পড়ছো, বাংলা পড়ছো, শুনে আবার নাক ছিটকে আরে কি পড়ছে, বাট ভীষণ ভালো এগুলোকে, এগুলো প্রথম থেকে শেখাতে হবে। আইসিএস পরীক্ষার সময় সংস্কৃত একটা পরীক্ষা, আমাদের ছোটবেলা তো আইএস যখন হতো তখন একটা সংস্কৃত অপশন পেপার ছিল, আর ভালো ছেলেমেয়েরা আইএস সংস্কৃত অপশন করতো। সেটা আস্তে আস্তে বছর 30-40 আগে এগুলো আস্তে ইচ্ছে করে ডাউনগ্রেড করা হয়। সেটাকে তুলতে হবে, উপরে তুলতে হবে, ইম্পর্টেন্স দিতে হবে। আমাদের প্রবলেম একটা, আমাদের ভালো টেক্সট বুকের অভাব আছে, ভীষণ টেক্সট বুকের অভাব, খুব ভালো টেক্সট বুক আমাদের, স্ট্যান্ডার্ড নেই। অনেক ভালো টিচার, আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং টিচার্স আছেন স্কুলে, ইউনিভার্সিটি, সব জায়গাতেই আছেন, অনেক সাবস্ট্যান্ডার্ডও আছে, অনেক প্রচুর আছে মফস্বলে, ছোট শহরে। আর টিচারদের প্রচন্ড রোল, মানে টিচারদের, আপনারা তো পড়ছে এত বড় ইনস্টিটিউশন, প্রচন্ড রোল ম্যান মেকিং। কিন্তু তার জন্য ক্রুশিয়াল হচ্ছে সিলেবাসটা ভালো, সিলেবাসটা আপডেট করতে হবে। वो यूनिवर्सिटी सिलेबस अपडेट करा है ना भाई, पढ़ दो, फिर पढ़ना पड़ेगा यार, फिर नया किताब दे दिया, अरे नहीं पढ़ाई करो कुछ, भैया पैसा मिलता है তো নতুন সিলেবাস করতে হবে, নতুন কোর্স দিতে হবে, তার জন্য খাটতে হবে। বিদেশে কত তাড়াতাড়ি, ইভেন আমাদের দেশেও কত ইউনিভার্সিটি সুন্দর সুন্দর আমাদের সিলেবাস চেঞ্জ করা হয় টাইমলি, সেগুলো করতে হবে। খালি ছেলেদের বলো পড়ো, নম্বর পাও, বাট আমরা ওকে সাবস্ট্যান্ডার্ড জিনিস পড়াবো, বাজে বই দেবো, তাহলে চলবে না। এইগুলো দরকার, এডুকেশন পলিসিতে এইগুলো আসতে হবে। আর মাস এডুকেশন চাই, ছোট গ্রাম থেকে। খালি টাকা দিচ্ছি, খরচা হচ্ছে না, অন পেপার দেখাচ্ছি, এই এডুকেশন, এগুলো বন্ধ করতে হবে। বলুন। আমি ফোন করছি রত্নামকে, দেখি।
আমি একটা কোশ্চেন করতে পারি?
করো,
হ্যাঁ, একটা question আছে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, বলো।
বলুন।
আমি রামশঙ্কর
কাকে
দাস,
বলছেন?
আমি মিশনের উদ্ভিদবিদ্যার ছাত্র। আমার কোশ্চেন হচ্ছে, বর্তমানে সমাজ জীবনে কোনো ছাত্রকে কিভাবে চলা উচিত যা এই সমাজের পক্ষে ভালো বা সমানবিকতা যুক্ত ছাত্র হিসেবে সূচিত করবে?
জিজ্ঞেস করলে?
আমি রামশঙ্কর দাস।
কাকে জিজ্ঞেস করলে তুমি?
আপনাকেই বলছে,
আপনাকে।
আমাকে বলবে এর কথাটা একটু মানে খুব লাইট হয়ে জোরে বলো তো ভাই, জোরে বলো একটু। হ্যাঁ,
বর্তমানে
জোরে
সমাজ
বললে।
জীবনে, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলছি, বর্তমানে সমাজ জীবনে কোনো ছাত্রকে কিভাবে চলা উচিত যা এই সমাজের পক্ষে ভালো বা সমানবিকতা যুক্ত ছাত্র হিসেবে সূচিত করবে?
হ্যাঁ, এতে খুব মানে সিম্পল কথা, জানি না ভালো লাগবে, মানে নিয়ম মেনে চলতে হবে। বাড়িতে বাবা মা যা নিয়ম বলেন, কলেজে স্কুলে মাস্টারমশাই বলেন, সেই নিয়ম মেনে চলতে হবে। আর এখন ডাইভার্সন অনেক হয়ে গেছে না, ডাইভার্সন অনেক হয়ে গেছে, হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ মেসেজ এই সব টিউবে সবকিছু পাওয়া যায়। এগুলো যতটা কাট করে মানে কনসেন্ট্রেট করতে হবে, নিজের শরীরের উপর যত্ন রাখতে হবে। সেটা স্বামীজি খুব বলতেন, শরীর স্বাস্থ্য খুব, খাওয়া দাওয়ার টাইম, আর সিম্পল লিভিং হাই থিঙ্কিং, ওই এক কথা আমরাও শুনে এসেছি, আমার আগের জেনারেশন, তাই তোমাদের বেসিক কথাগুলো একই থাকে। মানে হেলদি লাইফ অ্যাচিভমেন্টের একই মন্ত্র। তোমাদের স্বামীজিরা মাস্টারমশাইরা আরো কথা বলেন ভালো বেশি, তারা শুনবে তোমরা, তাহলেই ঠিক হবে, খুব প্রবলেম নয়। হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ বলুন। আমি ফোন করেছিলাম, ফোনটা এনগেজ আছে, রত্ন মেনা আছে, দেখছি বোধহয়
এনগেজ আছে। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
ফোন করেছিলাম, মনে বোধহয় ঠিক আছে। যখন বলেছেন তখন দেখুন আপনারা কতক্ষণ ওয়েট করতে পারেন। আর 5:30 হয়ে গেছে,
10 মিনিট,
দেখুন।
10 মিনিট বলছিলেন,
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, দেখুন
দেরি
আপনাদের
পাচ্ছেন।
সময় থেকে ঠিক আছে, আপনারা ওয়েট করুন। হ্যাঁ নিশ্চয়,
হ্যাঁ,
আপনাদের
নাও
সময় থাকলে আপনারা
বলছেন না,
করছেন আপনাদের।
না বলছেন না, সেই
হ্যাঁ,
জন্য
ওর ইচ্ছে আছে, আমি বললাম, আরে স্বামীজি বলছেন তুমি তো
আরেকবার
বলেছিলেন
লাগিয়ে
আসবে
দেখুন দেখি।
স্যার
বলুন বলুন।
বলছি,
হ্যালো,
স্যার আপনাকে এই কোশ্চেনটা করছি।
বলো।
বর্তমান যুগে ধর্মে শিক্ষার গুরুত্ব কতটা? কারণ বর্তমান
বর্তমান
যুগে
যুগে শিক্ষা, হ্যাঁ,
ধর্মে ধর্মে এবং রাজনৈতিক জীবনে শিক্ষার গুরুত্ব কতটা, মানে এই দুটো প্ল্যাটফর্মে,
ধর্মে,
ধর্ম ধর্মে আর রাজনৈতিক
হ্যাঁ
রাজনৈতিক জায়গায়, দু জায়গায়।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ,
আপনি
নিশ্চয়
এটা
উচিত
নিয়ে
শিক্ষা দরকার তো।
আপনি যদি এটা নিয়ে একটু
আত্মজ্ঞান নিশ্চয়
এক্সপ্লেন করেন।
হ্যাঁ, ধর্ম কি, আমাদের ধর্ম তো যেটা ধৃতি ধরে থাকে, আমাদের আমাদের ধর্ম তো মানে অ্যাগ্রেসিভ নয়, আমাদের ধর্ম তো হিংসা শেখাচ্ছে না। সেটা আমাদের ধর্মে অনেক কিছু ভালো আছে, কুসংস্কার আছে, সব সমাজেই থাকে, কারণ সমাজটা তো বড় পুরনো না, 5,000 বছর সমাজ, যেগুলো কুসংস্কার থাকে সেগুলো সামাজিক কুরীতি, তার সঙ্গে ধর্ম সম্পর্ক নেই। সেগুলো যতটা বর্জন করা যায়। আর আমাদের তো ইন্ডিয়াতে, বেঙ্গলে সোশ্যাল রিফর্ম তো খুব একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট এজেন্ডা ছিল চিরকালই না রিফর্মারদের। তো যেটা কুসংস্কার, সেগুলোকে তো এই আমাদের মহিষীরা, রামমোহন রায় থেকে শুরু বিদ্যাসাগর, সবাই চেষ্টা করে গেছেন। সেই জন্য আমাদের তো সোসাইটিতে অনেক কাস্টিজমটা কম আছে বেঙ্গলে, যেন অন্য সোসাইটি নর্থ ইন্ডিয়া দেখি, সাউথ ইন্ডিয়া সেটা একদমই নেই প্রায় বললেই চলে। আর তো নিশ্চয় আছে যে সৎ শিক্ষার বেসিস ধর্ম, মানে ধার্মিক ধর্মপ্রাণ। আর সত্যিকার ধর্ম যদি কিছু করতে হবে, খালি খালি মানে পুজোর সময় পাড়ায় গেলাম, সরস্বতীর সময় মাইক বাজালাম, তাতে না, মানে সত্যিকারের মানে ভক্তি ভাবটা থাকতে হবে। আর পলিটিক্সটা তো রাজনীতি বললে, রাজনীতি তার ছাত্রবাসা না করলেই
হ্যাঁ
ভালো,
স্যার,
মানে সময়
রাজনীতির কথাই বলছি।
সময় নানা ভীষণ আনসার্টেন রাজনীতিটা। যারা খুবই অল্প দেখবে, যারা ছাত্র জীবনে করেছে স্টুডেন্ট পলিটিক্স, তারা পরে এমপি বা মন্ত্রী হয়েছে ভীষণ কম সংখ্যায়। তাদের জন্য অনেক রকম অন্য ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড চাই, ফ্যামিলি ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড, অনেক পয়সা কড়ি চাই, অনেক কন্ট্যাক্ট চাই, যেগুলো তাদের আছে শিওর তারা করতে পারে। আদারওয়াইজ আমি বলবো ভাই 20-21 বয়স পর্যন্ত ওইটাও বাদই রাখো। ইন্টারেস্ট না, শুড বি পলিটিক্যালি অ্যাওয়্যার, পলিটিক্যাল কনসিয়াসনেস নিশ্চয় থাকতে হবে, কি হচ্ছে না ভালো মন্দ। আর 18 বছর ভোট হয়েই গেছে, তো কিছু তো রাইট আছে, আমাদের সময় ছিল না এখন। সো ইউর ভোটিং রাইটস অলসো, কিছু তো পলিটিক্যাল অ্যাওয়ারনেস চাই। কিন্তু এখন মিডিয়ার যা হাল অবস্থা আমার দেশে, সেটা বলা মুশকিল কে কি বলছে। আমি তো পড়ি সব বাংলা ইংরেজি কাগজগুলো, সবই তো মনে হয় মিথ্যের ঝুড়ি ঝুড়ি মিথ্যেই বলছে, প্রোপাগান্ডা করছে, সত্যি খবরটাই পাওয়া যায় না। তারই মধ্যে নিজের আজকাল সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া হয়ে গেছে, তার থেকে অনেক কিছু অ্যাক্সেস আছে না, বন্ধু বান্ধব হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ এসব আছে, অনেক খবর পাওয়া যায় যেটা আগেকার দিনে পাওয়া যেত না আমাদের সময়। সো টু দ্যাট এক্সটেন্ট তোমরা লাকি, সেটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট ব্যাপার।
স্যার একটু দেখুন, যদি উনি জয়েন করতে চায় আরেকবার ফোন করে দেখুন, যদি না হয় আমরা তাহলে করে দিই।
হ্যাঁ আমি দেখছি, আরেকবার দেখছি। হ্যাঁ ও বললো আমার খুব ব্যস্ত, মিটিং ফিটিং আছে আজকে, আমি বলেছিলাম তো ওর ইচ্ছেও ছিল মনে হচ্ছে আসার। হ্যাঁ আমি দেখছি আবার। হ্যালো, হ্যাঁ স্বামীজি ফোন তো এনগেজড আছে ওর, আমি একটা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করলাম স্বামীজি। হ্যাঁ
হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করেছেন? আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করেছেন।
হ্যাঁ ফোন করলাম, ফোনটা এনগেজড আছে, আর হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করেছি একটা, জানি না এখন যদি ব্যস্ত থাকলে দেখে নিন, আপনাদের যেমন আপনাদের ইচ্ছে 5-10 মিনিট বা বন্ধ করবেন।
সেই আর কি, আমার মনে হচ্ছে
ঠিক
আর বোধহয়
5
উনি কি ব্যস্ত হয়ে পড়েছেন, বা আমি বলছিল বলে নাও বলতে পারছে না। তা আমার কথাটা হচ্ছে
হ্যাঁ
যে অলরেডি উনি মানে এই আর কি,
হ্যাঁ, না
উনি
হয়তো
যে
বন্ধ করে দেবেন, আর কি কথা।
মানে অলরেডি জয়েন করলে তখন আর হতো মানে এর মধ্যে করে ফেলবেন। উনি তো বলছে 10 মিনিট অনেক পেরিয়ে গেছে, তাহলে আমরা অ্যাটলিস্ট ভোট অফ চেঞ্জ, আমরা উনি মনে হচ্ছে আমাকে না বলতে পারছে না। আর তো
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
40 হয়ে গেল,
হ্যাঁ
ফিনিশ
সেই।
করে ফেলি। আর কি বলেন?
হ্যাঁ আমি তাই বলছি, আর কতক্ষণ ওয়েট করবো, কেন সবারই কাজ আছে,
হ্যালো,
হ্যাঁ সময়
আপনার
আছে।
কথা, হ্যালো,
হ্যাঁ না আমার মনে হয় দেখুন আরো 2-3 মিনিট পাস, আপনি ভোট অফ থ্যাঙ্কস করুন, যদি চলে আসে তো হয়ে যাবে
হ্যাঁ
10
হ্যাঁ
মিনিট
ঠিক,
কথা।
ভোট অফ থ্যাঙ্কস, ভোট অফ থ্যাঙ্কস, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ঠিক ঠিক।
হ্যাঁ কেন সবাই দেরি হচ্ছে আমার। হ্যাঁ তাহলে বলতো নিশ্চয়, আমি ফোন করেছি, দেখুন যদি আসে তো ঠিক আছে। হ্যাঁ আমরা তো ওয়েট করছিলাম, আপনারা অনেকক্ষণ ওয়েট করেছেন।
Okay, so let us move on to the vote of thanks part. I would request Brigade Maharaj Swami Vivekananda, Controller of Examination, RKM VCC College, to give away the vote of thanks.
respected dignitaries for today's session, Professor Vishnu Padananda and Professor Haradindu Mukherjee. And we are really fortunate to have all of you amidst us today. And so we have come to the end of 2 days national webinar on the philosophy of education and Swami Vivekananda, funded by Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. So in the first day, we had Swami Divyasudhanandaji, Principal Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapit, Deoghar, Jharkhand. Swami Ekachittanandaji, Principal Ramakrishna Mission Vidya Mandir, Belur Math, and Swami Narasimhanandaji, Secretary Ramakrishna Mission Sevashrama, Kozhikode, Kerala. And today we had Professor Vishnu Padananda, Professor Department of Education, Jadavpur University, and Dr. Haradindu Mukherjee, member ICHR, New Delhi, as our speakers for the technical sessions. And due to an extremely busy schedule, Professor Kumar Ratnam, a member secretary, ICHR, New Delhi, could not be present in today's session. We are really grateful to all the speakers, Professor Vishnu Padananda sir and Dr. Sharadindu Mukherjee sir, for enlightening our students in on this aspect of Swami Vivekananda's educational philosophy. And on behalf of the entire college, Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, on behalf of all the teachers, staff members, students, we express our heartfelt gratitude to both of you for sharing your wisdom and for enlightening all our students on this aspect. So since all of us have assembled here on the occasion of education and we are mostly associated with educational institutes, so we should understand what is correct education, and that has been very greatly highlighted by Swami Vivekananda in many of his works. And during our 2 days of a national webinar, we have heard from all our respected dignitaries who have highlighted different aspects of Swami Vivekananda's views on education, what is the correct education, which kind of education is currently required for this particular time, and how it can be modeled. So various speakers have given their ideas, their opinions, and their suggestions. So hopefully we will try to imbibe Swamiji's ideas and try to develop ourselves along the line of Swami Vivekananda, who emphasized the balanced growth of the 3 H's, the head, heart, and the hand. So there should be physical strength, there should be intellectual strength, and there should be spiritual strength for the complete man-making education which Swami Vivekananda has envisioned, and which in future will be practified by many seers and many great people. So with these few words, I express my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers, and I express our gratitude to all those who have organized this webinar. We express our gratitude to the participants, and I express my gratitude to Manas Maulik sir for comparing the entire program for the 2 days national webinar. So we hope that in future also we will try to organize such programs so that we can understand the process through which all of us are going, that is education, and then only it will be proper. So unconsciously nothing happens. There should be conscious attempt to understand the path through which we are treading. Then only we can correctly walk along that path. If we know the path properly, then only we can walk along it. So with these few words, I thank you all for being present over here. I pray to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi, and Swami Vivekananda for guiding us along the path of correct education. Thank you very much. Namaskars.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.